Hello, I'm Kate Williams and welcome to Media Week. Ahead on the program, we'll have the results from the latest from OzTam Nielsen multi-screen report. Is streaming and catch-up services making gains, or is traditional TV viewing still holding its ground? And footy season kicking off, we'll see how it played out in the ratings this week. Joining me in the studio, as always, is our guest host, James Manning, editor and publisher of Media Week. The first ratings survey for the year has been released, showing mixed results for all the major networks across markets. And for more on the sector, we're joined in the studio by Duncan Campbell, National Content Director at Australia Radio Network. Duncan, thanks so much for joining us. Really do appreciate your time on the program. First of all, before we get into the ratings results, we just want to ask you about this time of the year. We hear it can be a little volatile and unpredictable. Does that mean that these results are worth less than other surveys?
Well, we work under a rolling survey system, so and Survey 1 has no rolling effect in it. So it's a standalone 6-week survey, which also includes some school holidays as well. So it includes some periods of time where listening is not normal. So, and it's also a 6-week survey versus a 5-week. So it can throw up some interesting numbers, as it did this week, but it allows us to understand where we're all positioned and sets us up for the whole year, effectively.
In a way, it's like a clean survey, isn't it, with no overhang from the previous
That's
one?
correct, yeah.
And will some of this survey then be incorporated in Survey 2
so
results?
half of this survey now rolls into the next survey, and that rolling survey methodology begins.
Yeah, the ratings are just one of the things, I guess, you use to make your programming decisions, probably maybe the most important, but you get other metrics too these days you can access, don't you? How important a part are these ratings in, who you put on?
Commercially they're very important, obviously, because it's they're the numbers which by which all stations are judged. But in terms of from a content perspective and how we program the stations, we use a lot of other information, a lot of internal research which we do, which helps us design and adjust the formats and content to best suit the audiences we're targeting.
What sort of internal research? Focus groups, or
we use a combination of focus groups, but also major market strategic studies, which pretty much take a helicopter view of a market, and so we can see where each station is and where their strengths or weaknesses are, and where we need to adjust our position to best optimise the audience that we're attracting.
You had 2 new breakfast shows in Melbourne this year, at Gold and at KISS Melbourne. Before you put a program on air, do you research that much? Do you?
Well, I mean, we do a little bit of research, but effectively we know what audiences, our target audiences want. I think the challenge for new breakfast shows is to find a point of difference in the market, and that certainly is challenging in Melbourne when you, particularly on the FM, sort of CHR band, under 40 radio, I suppose, because they all sound fairly similar. They have similar structures to them. So trying to carve out a point of difference in Melbourne will be the challenge for, not just for us, but for Nova, which is obviously a new show, and for Fox as well, because they're all very similar.
I want to ask you about rebranding before we jump into the results. You've done that with KISS very successfully in Sydney. I guess the jury's still out on how successful you'll be in Melbourne, but you've done it down there. You've got a national KISS network, but you haven't really rebranded the stations individually in Brisbane and Adelaide. Is there reasons for that? Because we've seen Southern Cross Austereo facing that same sort of decision. They're calling it the Hit Network, but they haven't rebranded all the stations as such.
Well, the issue for us was really the rebrand was certainly commercially driven rather than sort of audience driven, because in Brisbane and Adelaide those stations were #1 radio stations. So to change the names of those stations to KISS just didn't make sense. So from a commercial offering, it's that they're part of the KISS network, but they are successful in their own right, and we didn't want to disrupt any of that success.
So that heritage is quite a factor in if you do drop a name. And then just quickly, AM music stations, you've got a couple of them. We've seen Macquarie, they've got to go through a sale process to divest one of their AM music stations. Is it hard to program and get sizable audiences that make a...
Look, it is.
Are they worth maybe obviously not worth as much as they once were, those AM licences, but is there still a market there?
I think there is, and it certainly 2015, Cruise in Adelaide did very well, and KQ in Brisbane, performs well consistently. But they're older demographics, though. There's no doubt about that. When you're talking sort of really under 50 now, you're talking about FM when it comes to music.
Yeah.
So I guess we should get stuck into the ratings now.
Let's
Shall we start bringing them up? And Duncan and James are going to talk us through them. And we'll start with Sydney. And we're starting to get the figures coming down on the screen. And 2GB at the top there with 11.6%. James?
Yeah, look, it's no real surprise there. I guess the big mover, and you'd be happy about this, Duncan, of course. KISS had a great survey, didn't they? Is that almost a record high for the breakfast show?
It's certainly a record high for Kyle and Jackie O since they joined ARN. They did top that a couple of times at SCA, but that's their best result for us.
Yeah, and it'll be the best result of that station for quite a long time, I would imagine, too. Maybe back in the days before even it was called Mix, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, OK, we'll move on to Melbourne now. I think Melbourne radio ratings and 3AW up there with almost 13%.
Yeah, look, another look. AW is no surprise; they're always there. But the big news is, I guess, Gold slipping ahead of Fox there. Fox has had a stranglehold in that top position for a long time. Gold had a pretty good year last year.
Yeah, I think people forget Gold's been a very consistent performing radio station, and has had number ones previously on FM, and this was a great result for Gold. Again, Survey 1 threw up the anomaly of Fox's decline, which is over a percentage point. But there's no trend behind that, to be fair to Fox. So. It's a bit. I'd be a bit cheeky sitting here saying that Fox is sort of in decline after only one survey.
Yeah, I mean, we always look at the top 5 too. It's sort of an arbitrary figure, but I guess even in big markets, you'd still like to be in that top 5, wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
And of course, Nova's missing off that list, so they'd want to see some improvement there. Although it's a new show, early days.
Yeah, Melbourne's a very challenging market for all those 3 CHRs, so it's going to be very interesting.
Why is that?
I think because it's they all sound very similar, and the breakfast shows also sound similar, whereas in Sydney you've got differentiating breakfast shows. I mean, Fitzy and Whipper is unique. Kyle and Jackie O have a clear point of difference, and obviously the Hit 104 show is only new. So
it's just as simple as the personalities on the program.
Well, not as simple, but it's the familiarity of the personalities and the sort of the content they produce, the point of difference that they create.
Okay.
I wish it was as simple as just the personalities, but they are obviously very important. And in Sydney, you've got heritage shows in Jones and Amanda on WS, Kyle and Jackie O, etc., Fitzy and Whipper. Melbourne, it's all relatively new, so some heritage personalities, but not heritage shows.
OK, Brisbane, we'll move on to Brisbane ratings now, and 97.3 up the top there with just over 12%.
Yeah, look, this wasn't a setup, but it's so far you're doing very well. 3 out of 3,
yeah,
Duncan.
We had
97.3 owned the surveys last year, and it's started off the same way in 2016.
Yeah, I mean, what doesn't show there is we actually declined in Brisbane, but so the 2-horse race that it was last year with Nova and 97.3 sort of has been shaken a bit this first survey. It's much tighter in Brisbane, but look, I think. We've done the internal research. I think that's an anomaly. It'll sort of, once it settles, it'll settle back down to the 2-horse race that it was last year. But yeah, 97.3 is very strong for us.
Any comment on your competition? Triple M had pretty good survey in Sydney, pretty good survey in Brisbane, continually to perform well in Melbourne.
They've done some good work with the music on Triple M. They've really sort of broadened the appeal with the new national music director, Vaughan Hobbs, who they employed, and so. The station.
It's not next from you, it's not.
No, he's from New Zealand.
Okay.
But
too soon to call it a trend for Triple M.
Let's wait and see how the next couple of books evolve. But a good start to the year for them.
Yeah. Okay.
And let's take a look at how things started for the year in Adelaide. And Nova's up the top there with just over 11%.
Yeah, that's a surprise. That's one of the things you probably wouldn't have expected to see, would you, at the start of this year? Mix, you've owned number 1 slot for a long time.
We have, in fact, 6 years overall. So that was a big disappointment for us. And there has been a bit of a downward trend in Mix in Adelaide. So that was probably the only disappointment for us in this survey. And we'll have a bit of work to do in Adelaide.
I mean, it's the smallest market in Australia in terms of revenue and all that, but still... You need it to be strong to be part of the network offering, don't you?
Absolutely.
You want to plane to Adelaide after the show today? Or
no, I'm not flying to Adelaide after the show today, but we will do some work there, and that was probably the the key disappointment for ARN.
Yeah, and a good survey for Southern Cross there too. Both the Triple M and Hit,
yes.
Significant jumps there, especially that the breakfast show. I think it's Amos and Cat and Amos at Hit there.
Yes.
Dave Cameron, the guys that have always thought that it's been a really good show. Yeah. It's pioneered the Hit network really in Adelaide for them too.
They've done a lot of work on Adelaide and certainly on Triple M in Adelaide as well. So it's paying some early dividends this year. So we'll watch that with keen eyes and ears.
Okay.
And we'll finish off over in the west in Perth, and Mix up there with 15%.
Yeah, again, it's really the traditional owner there is the #1 overall Mix, isn't it? But Nova had a pretty good survey too. Let's go straight to 96 though. You're part of the KISS network now. This will be your first full year with that national KISS offering. You've talked before, you've still got a fair bit of work to do at 96, but you seem to be happy with where you might be.
Yeah, look, our strategy was always to evolve the station, and we did that last year. We shed the audience we needed to shed quite quickly. Some would say too quickly. But 2015 was always about getting the station positioned for a rebuild in 2016. So we've seen the green shoots in Survey 1, and we expect that to continue. It won't be a jump to #1, by the way. It'll be a rebuild, and that's part of our plan.
Sure, yeah. So in Perth, where should it be competing with 96? Do you want some more of that Mix audience?
We want some more females, and some of those females will come from Mix. That's a really delicate balance musically, and we'll also rely on content driven out of the breakfast show as well.
Yeah.
Why don't we ever show Hobart or Darwin in those radio?
Well, they're not really part of the metro networks because they are quite tiny markets,
right,
population-wise, and the amount of revenue. I mean, if they suddenly got a growth spurt, the network, the stations would certainly want to include them,
Yeah.
But the revenue they write, is that
That's
right?
right, yeah. And also there's surveys throughout separate parts of the year.
Okay.
They have less surveys than the metro station, the main metro stations do.
So there has been a big move at commercial radio to start surveying those smaller markets a lot more regularly than they have been. And this year, I think there's a whole lot of markets that have never had a survey, which will be surveyed for the first time.
Yeah, that's right. There was a survey released for Dubbo this week. So.
Yeah.
As an example, yeah.
Fantastic. All right, Duncan Campbell, thanks for joining us. We really do appreciate your time. And James is going to stick with us, and we've got plenty more media news coming up. But when we do come back, live TV looks still to be king when it comes to Australians consuming content. But are streaming services on the rise? We'll take a look at the results of the latest multi-screen report next.
Wix makes it easy for me to create a beautiful website that showcases my passion, my ideas and my work. It's simple to drag and drop a gorgeous gallery. There are so many options to choose from. I can add photos and videos, show off my products and easily move everything into place exactly how I want. With Wix, I can run my business my way. And I know my website is as stunning as my bow ties. Go to wix.com and create your stunning website today.
Why should you compare? Well, it's easy to do. And according to Super Ratings, CareSuper's balanced option outperformed almost all other surveyed funds over 10 years. Just go to the CareSuper website and click on the Compare My Super button. Choose your super fund and CareSuper. Then see the difference not just fees, but also investment performance have made over 10 years with the same starting balance. After that, there's only one button you'll want to click on. So compare your super and consider CareSuper today.
Earlier today, back pain meant watching Max was a no-go. My husband would have found it hard to stretch, bend or lift.
But he discovered Voltaren Emul Gel. Unlike heat rubs, Voltaren Emul Gel is a powerful anti-inflammatory medicine. It has a triple benefit, which relieves pain at its source, treats inflammation and gets you moving sooner. Ready for round 2? Voltaren, the joy of movement.
Easter's here. Time to enjoy delicious Coles hot cross buns. Some with chocolate, some with fruit, and some without fruit. All just $3.25 a pack. That's right, just $3.25 a pack. Hot cross buns and great value together for Easter at Coles.
Hi, I'm Michael Kodari from CoSec. I've spent my entire life creating wealth for my clients and family. And right now, interest rates are at a historic low, so it's a challenge to have your money working harder for you. That's where COSEC can help. In 2012, I tipped TPG Telecom. In 2013, I recommended Domino's Pizza. And in 2014, I picked Ramsay Healthcare. All of these greatly outperformed the stock market. That's why COSEC clients are some of the wealthiest and most successful investors. At COSEC, we have a unique stock market filtering system. And now I can share this knowledge with you. Because wealth begins with better knowledge. Just go to cosec.com.au and apply to get your free report. Act now and get cutting-edge research covering some of the best opportunities.
Michael, so what stock should I buy?
When Michael Kadari talks,
well,
everyone listens.
Sundays on Carvelis, issues that matter round the nation, debates that dig deep into big election questions, and what politicians say about themselves. Join guest host Christina Keneally on Carvelis, Sky News Live.
Welcome back, and our guest host today, or our co-host I should say, is James Manning, editor and publisher of Media Week. And it's been a pretty big week for the media, really, because we've got it in focus down in Canberra at the moment, and there's been plenty of positioning among regional TV players, including Bruce Gordon, talk of him buying NEC shares, and also Tim Warner commenting on a desire to own Prime Media. It's these regional players which are set to see a bit of a shake-up if these new rules are passed through Parliament.
Yeah, correctly, Kate. Look, it's all about really those regional media assets now. What will happen to them when those rules change?
We've got the 2 out of 3 rule, the reach rule, and the coalition's going to try and push those through.
And with the big metro networks now streaming, online nationwide, how much longer are they going to need those regional affiliates? So all those regional affiliates need to get a deal done, need to do it quickly. Tim Warner talked down the prospect of them buying Prime Media, but I think, look, that's a bit of the argy-bargy. I'm sure they'd be interested to take it at the right price.
Right.
They mightn't really want to own a regional player, but then they don't want to have to deal with an unfriendly owner, if you like. Okay. Someone else picks it up and they've suddenly got to deal with them. They'd rather deal with people they know, and if it's not going to be Prime, well, maybe Seven should own it themselves, but the price will be critical to them.
Okay, and I've also heard a lot of talk around Southern Cross as well, and you would assume there'll be changes because the share price has been shooting in anticipation of this.
Has it? Yeah, well, that's always a pretty good indicator that there might be something going on, and Bruce Gordon, as you mentioned in your intro there, plays into the mix, and he's getting a bigger stake in Nine.
Now, some significant chief executive departures as well this week. NZME's Jane Hastings, she's stepping down.
Yeah, look, absolutely. That's the... It's the company that owns most of the media assets for APN News and Media in New Zealand.
Right.
The chief financial officer's taken over there. There was look, I think they were going to float NZME as a separate company. That hasn't happened, so I guess they're still working out the future there. They've got some good radio assets. I think regional papers and the New Zealand Herald over there. So, but again, those assets aren't, as shiny as they once were, those print assets. So they're transitioning into digital. Back home here, Max Walters stepped down as the head of Seven. He's been a long time with Seven there. So, part of the Seven is going through a bit of generational change there too. So that's part of that.
And then moving over to radio, Nova's found a way to attract late-night sponsors. Tell us about this.
It's a great get for them because, look, mid-dawn listening is a bit of a real graveyard shift. You don't expect to hear a lot of advertising, but Nova's partnered with the New South Wales government. They're doing an education program for drivers, who driving late night, who might be feeling tired, making sure they pull over, get some rest if they need be. So it makes a lot of sense. So yeah, they're really breaking some new ground, if you like, in monetising areas that haven't generated a lot of revenue in the past.
Yeah, it sounds like a smart idea. Radio ad revenue as well. The details for February released this week, and Melbourne is the biggest market and Adelaide the fastest growing.
Yeah, it's also the smallest, Adelaide, but they're getting some big growth there, so that's good news for them over there. In terms of the digital disruption, all media has been suffering over the years. radio's sort of the least affected so far anyway. You know, there was, you know, music streaming, Spotify, Pandora, all that stuff. It was expected that might really cut into radio's audiences and affect their revenues, but that hasn't happened so far. So radio's still got a good story, still got good audiences, particularly in the start of the day in breakfast.
Yep.
With the, you know, the car radio is really a captive market, if you like, for all those commuters, and advertisers still like getting a bit of that action.
Yeah, absolutely. And Fairfax Media is going to close down the BRW website. We saw them get rid of the magazine a little while ago. What's going to happen to all the rich lists? That's
they've
how
got a
most
new
people
one. Do you
identify
call it a
with
vertical? They're called leadership, where a lot of that stuff's going to go. So they're still calling them, for the time being anyway, the BRW rich list. And that's where you'll find that from now, but I don't think there'll be any other BRW branding. So, and the AFR Boss was the other one. I think they're letting go of that branding too. That will also now come under that leadership vertical.
And to the paper's Sydney Morning Herald as well, a new editor.
Yeah, Judith Whelan, probably best known to people when she was editing the Good Weekend magazine, very successful Saturday insert for both the Age and the Sydney Morning Herald. She will come under Darren Goodser, who'll be editor-in-chief of the Herald. She's got a wider brief, so she's also going to be looking after that big digital audience they've got, and that new figures out today, in fact, found that claim the Herald is the #1 sort of online news brand. So news.com.au has that space as the digital only biggest #1, but I think when you factor in the SMH readership of their print products and their online, they're the single biggest news brand in Australia.
And Aussie news publishers received a few awards this week.
Yeah, or they're nominated, so they'll hopefully be picking up some of the awards. Yeah, it's the INMA, the International Newspaper Marketing Association is what that stands for.
Okay.
They have an annual awards in New York, 13 for Australia. News Corp best performing with 10, so they've got 10 opportunities to bring home an award.
And some merging agencies as well.
Yeah, look, Publicis Media has had a restructure. It's a big worldwide media group, have agencies and media buying shops all around the world. Starcom MediaVest and Zenith Optimedia are their big brands here. A little bit confusing that we don't know all the detail exactly. They said those brands won't continue, but they will still operate in Australia. So they're still going to have those two agencies, but they'll be renamed, I think.
Okay, James, we'll take a look at the television ratings now and see what we have here for week 10. And I think you're going to see a fair bit of My Kitchen Rules up on the screen.
We're going to see that till probably after Easter, Kate. So it's still the runaway.
Australians still aren't sick of cooking shows.
No, look, absolutely. And 10 is out there now pushing MasterChef. They've started the marketing campaign for that. So that'll be coming up. That'll start pretty soon after My Kitchen Rules finishes. The bottom of the chart there, Doc Martin, Wanted, finished this week on 7. It's probably the biggest drama at the moment. 7 haven't quite committed to another season, but we're pretty sure that'll be back again in 20.
There's not much drama around now, so...
Yeah, that's correct.
So much reality.
But when you
television.
get it right, though, it still works for you.
Okay, all right. Now we're going to take a look at subscription TV,
Yeah. In the sport, we'll see first. Yeah, look, first weekend of the NRL, just a fantastic business for Fox Sports. Of course, they've got every game live now in their sort of the new rights deal they're showing off this year. So, yeah, it filled the top 5.
Yeah, and now non-sport subscription television. Real Housewives of Melbourne.
Yeah, a couple of familiar faces. That movie, Fast and Furious 7, still does. Movies still draw big audiences for Foxtel too.
Okay, and British Bake Off.
Yep.
Also on there. Okay, let's talk about some television news, and we have the latest multi-screen report from OzTam. I guess you wouldn't necessarily call it television news, but it indicates, I guess, exactly how important traditional television is to Australians.
Yeah, look, they partnership with Nielsen on this. It's a some great insights you get every quarter. Look, the trend remains the same. You know, there's no big surprises every 3 months, but it's great to see how the trend changes. The trend is that the TV at home is still the prime viewing for video. Okay, so everybody's watching the big TV. The numbers for like mobile devices are pretty small. They are growing, but they're still pretty small. And most viewing is still live, over 90%. So catch up again is starting to grow, but it's still, still very important, that live viewing. So those statistics we get of overnight TV, they're still critical for media buyers.
And in the FTA sector, the trade body Freeview has appointed Seven's Chief Digital Officer Clive Dickens as chairman.
Yeah, look, he's chairman. He's been doing some great work at Seven. He really pushed them into that space to start streaming all their channels. So they got in there first with doing all that. It's no coincidence Freeview released a new mobile app this week for mobile devices, and just going back to those stats from Multiview, that the catch-up is growing in importance, but also the streaming services are coming into play as well. So it's something that the free-to-airs are keeping an eye on, and Clive's all over that, of course. 21% of people are using catch-up, but they're not using it a lot, but they are sampling it. I think that'll grow. Netflix is still the bigger of all the three main, Presto and Stan, the local sort of streaming service, but Netflix is still the big daddy of those ones.
And just to finish off, Seven signed a deal with YouTube. That's an interesting move.
Yeah, again, look, Clive Dickens will have his fingerprints all over that deal too. Their Chief Digital Officer. And it makes a lot of sense too. They're the biggest sort of video platform in the world, if you like, so they'll put up a lot of their content there, and they can sell the ad placements in those too. So I think it's mainly starting with short form clips of some of their shows, so some of their content, they'll push that out on that platform, and it's a win. So you also get to sell the advertising on there, but again, it's promoting the shows back on the network. So if audiences sample some of those programs that they haven't come across before, they can chase it up either on live TV or on catch up.
Fantastic. James Manning, Media Week, thank you as always for joining us on the program. We do need to take a quick break. Thanks for your company.